get on your job, yo. Gotta get on your job, yo. Motivation. Haters get on your job, yo. You hate to get on your job, yo. Motivation. Tell them haters get on your job, yo. You hate to get on your job, yo. Motivation. Get on your job, yo. You hate to get on your job, yo.
You may not realize this. You actually crashed in my apartment one time. Yeah. So this is kind of like, this is your life.
You're in what city are you in?
I'm in Ocala right now, but I live in Gainesville.
I think I remember that. Was that
Okay.
2003? Me and Raphael played a tournament, and was it Lee? Is his name Lee?
That's right. That's my roommate Lee, right?
Ha, okay.
You stayed at our place, and we wanted to welcome you, do the college thing, throw a party for you guys. And then I realized you guys are like, it kind of hit me like, oh no, wait, you guys are actually pros. And, and after looking back, I'm like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. Like we, not that we didn't appreciate it or we didn't take it seriously, but at the same time, we kind of split it up between having fun and doing the training thing. But,
yeah, it's no problem. And plus, like, I'm really conservative,
okay.
so like,
Yeah.
I don't do well with really loud parties.
Yeah, I totally understand. Yeah, looking back, we probably should have asked ahead of time. But I really did appreciate you guys coming out. That was really useful, and we all really enjoyed that. Cool. So that's that. So anyways, Brian, thanks for joining me on the Pongcast. I was looking forward to interviewing you, and I thought this might be a great time, and not particularly because of table tennis, but actually because I was hoping there would be Game 7. So you already know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Are you an NBA fan, and more specifically, maybe you're a big-time Mavericks fan now?
When at the beginning of the season, Rick Carlisle and I, the head coach, we became really good friends. He contacted me one day on my website asking about equipment. I think he had seen something I had done from Butterfly, and he called him and he said, where's Brian? They said he's gone. So he found me, and we became friends ever since. And in the beginning of the season, I sent him a text. I said, "See you in the finals." And he said, "Bet." And I said, if you make it to the finals, we go to dinner, you give me an interview, and we play some table tennis. And he said, perfect.
Wow.
So when it actually happened, we were laughing because we were like, I always followed the Heat, because I've been in South Florida since 1997. So, but then when I became friends with Rick, I've always followed the Mavericks. And these were the only two teams that I followed the whole seasons. And then to see them play, going into game one, it was a little bit of a conflict because I really wanted 7 games. I said, okay, I want the Mavericks to win, but I want 7 games because I don't want, with all this hype with the big three, it'd be nice if they go to the finals and go down 4-3. But I really was rooting for the Mavs, So created some conflict in the house.
I hear you. Yeah, I was wondering about that because I know you're based in South Florida and the Heat, all the Heat fans are there, but you became friends with Carlisle. And did you ever imagine meeting Rick Carlisle? I mean, you must come across a lot of people over your table tennis career, meeting people through table tennis, and that must have been quite a shock to get in touch with him. And I even saw in a video you actually stayed at his house at one time. And
yeah, I did.
He always visits you when he's in Miami, I guess.
Right. What happened was when he sent me the message, my best friend, which is a table tennis player, he's like 2,300, his name is Oscar Melvin. He lives in Dallas. And the last time I remember hearing Rick Carlisle's name was when they had that brawl with Artest in Indiana because he was the coach then. So
that's right.
I said, Rick Carlisle? Like, isn't he the coach in Indiana? So I picked up the phone. I called Oscar. I said, who's your head coach? He said, Rick Carlisle. And I just hung up. I said, okay, it's him. So we instantly hit it off because he's a major ping pong junkie, table tennis junkie. This guy calls me at 11 o'clock at night asking about how to play short pips, or the next night, hey, I got my Noogie robot and I'm having a problem with this thing. He's a junkie. So, our friendship really doesn't extend to it being celebrity status. It's just table tennis, which is fantastic because everybody likes to, whenever you meet somebody famous, you want to exploit it. And every time that we hung out, he said, hey, man, get your camera out and shoot some video. Yeah. And I was like, I'd rather just hang out. He's like, no, shoot it, man. I want to play some table tennis, So, it's been a real, fun experience because, I get insight into basketball. He gets insight into table tennis. He starts asking me about stories, and I start asking him about stories. And I get to meet some really cool people. I had a chance to hang out with Dirk and all of those guys when I was in Dallas. So that was just fantastic.
I imagine that's incredible. A great relationship, and he seems really down to earth, and it's so great to hear that he's really into the sport. I mean, I can tell just from the videos he's really into it, and he's got game. You ever think he's gonna start? Has he started playing in tournaments? Is he interested in doing a USATT tournament anytime soon?
I'm not going to discount it. His best friend, a guy named Wayne, they were high school. They were college roommates in Virginia, and they played table tennis every day. And you'll see in one of the videos, Wayne played table tennis too. And he said, look, Brian, first he was a coach, and then he got into golf, and he became great at it. He got into bowling. He became great at it, and he got into table tennis, and he became great at it. So I know he's going to play a tournament because he has one of those personalities where once he gets hooked on something, he's just obsessed. I mean, I haven't had a chance to meet a lot of coaches that are just so successful that anything they do, they're going to be great at it. Table tennis coaches have just played table tennis, and Rick is just, he's a constant achiever at everything,
Right. That's that's incredible. I might even throw yourself into that. I know you ventured off into what was that, mountain biking?
Mountain biking and road biking.
Yeah, let me get into that a little later, and let me just wrap up this Rick Carlisle talk.
Sure.
One final thing is you emailed me a picture, and you were there with them taking pictures with the trophy.
Yeah, game 6. Approaching game 6, he basically asked me, I got a ticket, I could only get one ticket. Pat Riley would only give me one ticket. Sorry, your wife can't come. Do you want to come? And I said, sure. So I come to the game, and it's just pandemonium. And then after the game, right when the game ended, the meter in my car had ran out. And I said, man, I got to go. I don't want to get this ticket. But, and then one of the friends that was with us said, how much is the ticket? And it might have been like $30. But for me, it was about the ticket. It wasn't about the money. And the guy said, forget the ticket. And just when I was going to try to slip out, Rick looked up at us and said, hang out. Hang out. And not even 5 minutes later, he basically took us all back in the locker room. Everything you see on ESPN with the champagne flowing everywhere, we were standing right there.
Oh, man.
It was just an unbelievable experience to see the look on these guys' face. I mean, they're pouring champagne on each other. They're hugging. And then we basically went into the office, and Rick said, look, you guys are my inner circle, so I want to thank you guys for keeping me sane because this was a really stressful time. So it was, I almost felt like it wasn't my experience to have. But he was like, Pace, every time I come to town, we have dinner, we play table tennis. That calms my nerves, So, I was just flattered to be a part of that,
Well, that's, I'm a big NBA fan, so you're living the dream, man. That's awesome that you get to actually be there in the locker room. Yeah, I can't believe it. That's so cool to hear.
Yeah.
And taking a picture with them and all that. So, that's just incredible. All right. So
I still don't believe it now. I put the pictures up on my Facebook, and everybody, I mean,
they must be asking, is that Photoshop?
Yeah, people there. The first time, one of my best friends, a guy named Todd Swear, said, "Is this real? How do you know this guy? Were you really there?" And it was just unbelievable to be there and I'm sitting right there when they're giving the interviews. I'm sitting right beside Dirk when he's saying, I stink of champagne. you know. So it's pretty special.
That's crazy. Well, I mean, it shows Rick Carlisle's a good friend, and you're a good friend to him too.
Yeah,
And
man. I mean,
that's great to hear. And table tennis brought you guys together. So, and great to hear that he's so hooked into the sport. And we need, more people. Obviously, we always want more and more people to join in the sport. And somebody like Rick Carlisle and get into it. That's really great to hear.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
So when you're a kid and you picked up the sport, you probably never imagined you'd get an experience like this. But let's go to that beginning. How did you get into the sport? What drew you to it?
Well, this is a unique story. Butterfly, North America is based in my hometown, which is really, I'm from Wilson, North Carolina, which is population 43,000 people. And the family that basically carried Butterfly in America got a connection with USATT. So they went to USATT and said, give us a grant. We want to coach kids. So what had happened is the coach came to the school and he did exhibitions in every single school in the city. Every single elementary school, every single high school just did exhibitions. And within a week, he had like 75 kids playing. And that's how I got started. And what the coach said is, I'm rich, but they gave money to us to pay ourselves to coach you. What we're going to do is allow you opportunity to work at Butterfly, make rackets, assemble tables, and create your own account so you can play tournaments. So that's what I did. I would get out of school. I would go there. I would assemble rackets. I would assemble tables. I would do anything they needed me to do. I would fill orders. And then when the company closed, we'd go in the back of the building and we'd play table tennis.
Wow.
So that's really how I got started, which was just, it's perfect. I was inside of a table tennis company. So at the same time I was learning how to play, I was understanding what it is to be inside the table tennis industry. So, within a year, I started in 1986. In 1987, we were the best junior team in the country.
How old were you when that all started?
I started in February of 86, and I was 13. And I turned 14 in April. So 2 months later, I was 14. So I practically started when I was 14.
Okay. And so you're working the Butterfly, you're getting that coaching, and you said you had the top junior team? Yeah,
we started, and within 1 year, 0 to 1 year, we were the best junior team in the nation.
Wow.
Like nobody knew. We went to New York and we won basically every single title.
Really?
And then the next year we had just as much success in the singles, and then we won a team event. It was like, who are these kids from North Carolina? Because we had basically just traveled North Carolina, South Carolina, Maryland, Virginia. And I think I might have been ranked top 5 in the country before I even left my area.
Wow.
So we didn't know how fast we were progressing because, we didn't have any, we couldn't compare ourselves to who the top junior was in Michigan, who was the top junior in California. We were just looking at names, our names and numbers beside those names. So It was really just, unique how fast we improved. And it probably was good because we didn't need a barometer. We were using ourselves as the barometer. This guy's getting better. I want to get better too,
Yeah. So you had perfect, who would have known you're what you would consider a small town. You were actually in the perfect place at the perfect time. And so you had all that training and competition and coaches. Now you mentioned you had a lot of good players with you. Are any of them like notable names that we might still recognize?
The only notable name that people will remember is Oscar Melvin. Okay. He got to maybe 2350, and he's a really good player, and he was the last person, to quit, or retire. Probably within 3 years, the training just got too hard. They brought in these coaches that were Nigerian. They were 2,600, and they weren't coaching us. They were training. They were training with us. And then when I say training, we would go out and we run 5 miles. Well, Jason, if you're 14 years old or you're 15, you can't keep up with a 28-year-old African for 5 miles.
Yeah.
So what happened is people started to quit because they could not handle the workload, the physical workload. I mean, parents were coming over and they were saying, look, my son comes home at 7 o'clock and he goes to sleep in the same clothes he was training in and does not wake up until the next morning. What in the world are you guys doing over here? And the coach, the owner of Butterfly, his son was the person that was in charge of the program. And, he probably didn't have as much experience. And he basically said, if you're not trying to make the Olympic team, you shouldn't be here. Which in hindsight, I look at it, it probably wasn't the best attitude, because if we want to grow our sport, we need to focus on, everybody participating. You don't have to do the Olympic pipeline.
Right.
You can do just local pipeline or regional pipeline, but he basically said Olympic or die. And nobody can handle it. I mean, in fact, one of the years, I finished second place in under 16 boys at the Junior Olympics one year. And the person that beat me was my best friend. And when he shook my hand, he whispered in my ear, "I'm quitting." That's how fed up he was. He won the national championships. And when he was shaking my hand, I'm distraught that I lost. He said, "I'm quitting."
Wow.
And he's never played another tournament again. But he has played table tennis every single week. I have him on my YouTube page. I tell the story to everybody. I say this guy could not handle the training, but still wanted to participate.
Yeah.
So that was probably the thing. The thing that was great about the program was the very thing that imploded the program. Is because, nobody. I mean, you had to be built like me. I'm 14 years old and I look like a fullback. So I handled the training, but not everybody else could handle the training. But in this program, Todd Swears came to North Carolina, Eric Owens, Randy Cohen. You can now almost every top junior in the country came to North Carolina. That's how popular the program was.
Oh, okay.
I mean, even Larry Hodges, he used to be the editor of the magazine. Yeah. He came there for one summer just to say, what is all the hoopla about these kids in North Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 years after the program started, me and Oscar were invited to move to Colorado Springs to be to be a part of the Olympic Training Center resident program, which means you live there all year and trained.
Right.
And that's when the program started to kind of split hairs, because the two top players and the leaders of the program moved to Colorado.
Right. Okay. So it sounds like people burned out. It was really, very intense. I mean, that's more intense than any of your high school football, basketball team, whatever. That's not even close.
Yeah.
That's intense. And like you said, a lot of people dropped out. I mean, that's great. They had 75. You said maybe up to 75 kids playing. So what made you stick with it? Because I guess it sounds like you were really the only one that really continued seriously afterwards.
Initially it was really immature or selfish reasons. I remember because at this time I had done track and field. I had done taekwondo. I was state champion in taekwondo, like under 13. So if they go check it, it was AAU. So, the fact checkers I was a national champion, state champion in taekwondo. And that's first summer I played. All my friends went to football camp about, 120 miles away from Wilson, And I went down to Miami and I saw boobs on the beach. And I said, wait a minute now, like my friends are in football camp and I'm looking at these women on this nude beach in South Beach and I'm saying, I had a better summer than you guys, And then like the next day I was in the hotel and I looked down and they were shooting Miami Vice in the lobby of our hotel. And I just said, this sport, it's exotic. Yeah. And then, like 4 months later, I was in Las Vegas and I was in a elevator with Ice-T and Jerry Lewis. And I said, this is my sport.
Wow.
And really what I liked about it is that it wasn't just every other thing I had ever done was just a bunch of black kids. Mm-hmm. And now I'm at a tournament and I'm playing this Chinese guy and he's 5'5". I'm playing this European guy. He's 6'4". I'm playing this person from New Delhi, India. I'm talking to this white doctor from South Africa. And I said, I think this is my sport. You know, so I like that it was really obscure. It was so many different people that was the main thing that fascinated me about it, you know?
Wow. So that's really, yeah, it's really interesting. I guess you're quite a sociable person, and I can tell you're really outgoing, and you know, you really kind of sell yourself well with the sport and everything, and so I guess that all makes sense. And so now that you went to Colorado, and how old were you when that happened?
I was 16.
16.
Yep.
And so now you're moving away from home, right?
Yes, that was probably one of the most difficult things in my life, because what happened was over that summer, one brother went to the military, one brother went to college, and then I moved out to go to Colorado. So I had an older sister. She was already at the house. So my mom went from, in the beginning of summer, she had a full house. At the end of the summer, she had nobody in the house, you know. So, you know, my dad died when I was 10. So my mom was like, the house is empty. She was traumatized. So after my first semester, I think I had like 1C. She made me move back to North Carolina. Years later, I find out she did it just because she missed me.
Oh.
But for me, I'm shocked. I'm like, Mom, I got to see, and I got to relocate back to North Carolina. She was like, yes. And I was like, oh, my God.
Wow.
And then my junior year, she did it again.
Okay.
I said, then my senior year, I said, okay, I'm not going back. I'm not going to go back. I'm staying the whole year, you know. So those years at the Olympic Training Center, those were the years that I really learned how to be an athlete. You know, they didn't care that you played ping pong. Nobody there looked down on the sport. We go to these, you know, every week you had to do, you know, you had to go to sports psychology.
Oh,
and the first thing they dealt with us is how do you see yourself? And the first thing I said is, how does society see us? They don't give us the credit that they give other sports. And just throughout that time, I learned how to respect the professionalism of my sport and to not, you know, treat myself as a second-class citizen, you know, compared to the other sports. So being there really taught me how to be an athlete emotionally. I mean, you know, time management, self-management, emotional management, all of those things, you know. I mean, I had counseling when I was 16 years old. Every week they'd ask me these, you know, 30 or 40 questions, and I had to give open-ended answers. I couldn't give a yes or no answer. So that was, I mean, that still affects me to this day, like in a good way, to where I don't mind having a deep philosophical conversation because I'm really comfortable with myself. And it's because of how comfortable I am with saying I'm a table tennis athlete, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I guess we're all, as players, we're all kind of fighting that image. And, you know, when somebody asks you or what you like to do or what you're good at, you say table tennis, and you can't help but like kind of look away or, you know, like,
you know, I've learned to just look them right in the face. And then say, because at some point I have to say, hey, I play table tennis. Yeah, they call it ping pong. Of course, I'm a black guy. It's not a lot of us, but I'm really good. Next question.
So that's interesting. You also bring up the psychology part, because I guess especially in recent years, that's, you know, sports is always evolving from equipment to technique, and certainly psychology seems to be now people are really incorporating that into sports and realizing that can be really important to help people out. So what were maybe some helpful things that you kind of learned? And also, I mean, just being Colorado Springs, that it made you grow up really quick. I mean, you're 16 on your own, and you're dropped into a professional environment, really for what's grooming pro athletes. So
yeah, I mean, the first thing it taught you real responsibility. You know, once we got there, you know, you had to wake yourself up. You know, we lived in a dormitory. I mean, there was 3 dormitories, and the first one was for resident athletes. We were down the hall from Christy Yamaguchi.
Wow.
You know, all of those people, they lived in the resident, you know, dorm. And the first thing you learn is, you know, a real sense of, you know, responsibility. You're going to have to do your own laundry. You're going to have to distinguish between whites and colors, because if not, you have some pink socks. I mean, little things like that you learn at 18 in your college, you learn at 16 when you're saying, my mama's across the country, you know? So that was probably the first thing that, you know, when I came back home, that was a noticeable difference for my mom, is that I didn't need her to do anything that I could do myself, you know, and, you know, probably, you know, going there and mingling with other athletes and, you know, really understanding, you know what you're there for. You're there because they want you to make the Olympic team.
Right.
You know, so that was just fantastic. I think I answered the second part of the question, but I forgot the first again.
The psychology part about it, certain things that made you think about that you maybe never considered, or, you know, maybe developing confidence or things like that.
You know what happened was, I don't know if you know Scott Price.
Sure.
He's a table tennis player. He does a lot of exhibitions. That's kind of his thing. One day, everybody left practice and I was there serving. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm serving, you know. And he said, "It's Thursday night and tomorrow we're flying to Georgia to play a tournament. It's not going to make a difference now, but go back to your dorm, turn the lights off, close your eyes, think about 3 things that you're going to do. And then when you go to Georgia, make sure you do those 3 things." You know, those were the things that helped me the most, because once I got there, I realized I was really gifted physically, but I had only been playing 2 years. And Todd Swears and Chisan Chewy and Jimmy Butler and Sean O'Neal, Darren Naratam, these guys have been playing 8 or 10 years. And they just said, Brian is a physical specimen, and he has perfected the form. But what he has not perfected is how to compete. And it took me a long time to learn how to do that. And, you know, Shane Murphy was my sports psychologist. And he would take me through these exercises where he would say, "Okay, Brian, you're going to get on the van and go to the Colorado Springs airport. You're going to fly to Denver. And when you get to Denver, you're going to eat a bag of chips. And then when you get back on the plane, you're going to listen to your Walkman. And when you get to Georgia, you're going to," he basically took me through the entire competition. When you get to the competition, say hey to your friends, check the draw, see who you play, go look at the tables, look at the floor, look at the lighting. You know, where's going to be your place that you can sit down for 20 minutes and actually gather yourself. By the time I got to tournaments, I knew exactly what I needed to do, and it wasn't like pulling teeth. It was a natural progression. So you learn how to walk the walk, you know. So when you see these 13-year-old, you know, gymnasts, and they're on this world stage, and you look at their eyes and their focus, it came from years and years of being walked through the process. And that's probably the number one thing that I've taken away from being there, because, you know, like my wife always says, like, Brian can achieve anything all the time. He can go ride his bike 200 miles, and he can come in the house, and he can edit video all night. And the next day he can just keep doing it because he's acclimated to how much he wants to push himself physically, and that controls what he thinks about emotionally. Because, you know, my wife is a therapist, and she just says, I don't understand what planet you're from. You know, and it's come from learning that early. You know, she's always been amazed at how willing I am to talk. Well, it's because at 16, you know, my sports therapist said, "What's going on in your mind?" And I'm like, "Oh man." The first thing I said is, "I'm not crazy." And he was like, "Okay, we got that out of the way." Like I said, "What's on your mind?" You know, so you learn how to be honest with yourself. And if you're honest with yourself, you know, not being cocky or egotistical, everybody else will see what you're about if you're honest with yourself. You know?